Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, so today we're diving into something pretty cool. We're looking at a guide that uses, of all things, a dragon to help us understand blood sugar. It's all about going from those crazy, fiery cravings to having nice, steady energy. Let's jump right in. So let's meet our hero, Zoran the dragon. And yeah, he's got this legendary sweet tooth, and he even has these catchy little jingles. But underneath all that fun is a problem that honestly is super common. It's that constant craving for sugar that just puts him on this wild, totally unpredictable ride. And you know what? That wild ride has a name. You've probably heard of it, or at least felt it. It's the Great Glucose Roller Coaster. We're talking about that classic cycle, right? You get these intense highs and then boom, these crushing lows. It's a pattern so many of us go through, sometimes without even knowing what's causing it. So first, you get that spectacular high. I mean, for Zoran, he feels like he could breathe dragon fireworks all day long. But that amazing feeling, it's always followed by this sudden, super dramatic crash that just leaves him totally drained. And that exhausting up and down cycle, that's the real problem we're talking about. Okay, so to figure out what's actually going on inside his body, Zoran gets a mentor. And she's a real person, a biochemist named Jessie Inchauspé, who you might know as the glucose goddess. She's the one who breaks down the science behind his roller coaster. And let me tell you, it's probably not what you're thinking. Right, and this is where the plot twists. We get a new villain. See, it turns out the real bad guy isn't the sugar itself, or even the carb. It's the speed. It's how fast and how sharp that glucose spike is after you eat. That's the problem. That crazy rapid rush is what messes everything up. The book uses this great analogy. Think about it like this. When all that glucose floods your system, your body sends out insulin to handle it. But a huge spike? That's like this sudden invasion of, mischievous little sprites, just totally overwhelming your body's defenses. And what happens next? Yep, that inevitable familiar crush. So the big question is, how do you get off this roller coaster? How do you flatten that curve? Well, this is where Jessie comes in with these simple, science-backed hacks. And the best part? They don't mean you have to give up all the foods you love. Zoran's training is about to begin. All right, hack number 1. We're heading into what she calls the fiber forest. And look, it's not just a cute name. It's a metaphor for a super powerful food group that is basically our first line of defense against those glucose spikes. We're talking about fiber. The idea is pretty genius. When you start your meal with veggies full of fiber, it creates this kind of protective mesh in your stomach. It acts like a bouncer or a gatekeeper, slowing everything else down. So when you eat sugars and starches later, they can't just race into your bloodstream. It's like the tortoise in that race against the jelly beans, the glucose. It makes sure everything happens slowly and steadily. Okay, now this next one builds right on top of that. Hack number 2 isn't about what you eat, but when you eat it. It's all about the order. And the book calls it the order of the meal, kind of framing it like a knight's battle plan, which is pretty cool. So here's how it works. Step 1, veggies first. That's for the fiber mesh we just talked about. They're the guardians. Then, step 2, proteins and fats. They're like the silent protectors. They slow things down even more. And then, and only then, you bring in the starches and sugars, the mischievous jesters. You save them for last. By eating them at the end, their impact is totally buffered. You get a much smaller, much gentler glucose curve instead of a huge spike. Now, this third hack is surprisingly simple, but wow, is it powerful. It's just a splash of vinegar before you eat. They call it a potion, and honestly, for good reason. The effect it has on how your body handles a meal can feel kind of like magic. So, what's the magic ingredient? It's something called acetic acid, and it basically launches this two-pronged attack. First, it slows down how fast starches break down into glucose, and second, it actually helps your muscles suck up glucose from your bloodstream faster. So, you put those two things together, and you've got a great tool for taming that spike. And look, this isn't just some fairy tale stuff for a fictional dragon. This is real. Medical experts like Dr. Michael Mosley totally back this up. These principles are super accessible, they're based in actual science, and they really do have the potential to make a huge difference in your health. But it's not all about what you eat. to really flatten those glucose curves, you have to look bigger. The next set of hacks really shows that this is a whole lifestyle approach. It's about bringing movement and rest into the picture too. You gotta remember, your muscles are like giant glucose sponges. So after you eat, even a simple 10-minute walk, they call it the dance of digestion, is enough to put those muscles to work. And as they move, they're literally pulling glucose out of your bloodstream for fuel. It directly lowers that spike after your meal. So simple. And finally, the last big piece of this puzzle is what they call the sleep cave. You cannot overlook this because poor sleep, it's a massive disruptor. It can actually make you more insulin resistant, which means your body has a harder time controlling glucose. Plus, it revs up your hunger hormones, which means, guess what? The next day, you're right back to craving all those sugary things you're trying to manage. It's a vicious cycle. So when you put all these pieces together, the food order, the splash of vinegar, the little bit of movement, getting good rest, Zoran completely changes his life. We're talking his energy, his mood, his health. He's finally off the glucose roller coaster for good. His life isn't ruled by cravings anymore. Instead, it's built around these new, powerful habits that keep his energy stable. You know, things like savory sunrise rituals instead of a sugary breakfast, or post-meal minuets, a little walk instead of collapsing on the couch. And I think this is the most important part. He learned to work with his body, not against it. He was adding these good habits in, not just focusing on taking things away. At the end of the day, Zoran's whole journey is just a big metaphor for our own, right? You don't have to do everything all at once and transform overnight. So the real question it leaves you with is this. If a dragon can master his energy, what's one simple hack, just one thing, that you could try to start your own quest?